Welcome to the NFN Radio News Podcast, brought to you by News.biz. I'm Bob Gaddy, founder and editor of Not Fake News. Today's podcast will present two commentaries written by Chris Waldron of News.biz. In the first, Gerrymandering, Voter Suppression, and the Big Lie. Chris points out that those are the three key elements of the Republican Party's current game plan as they seek to regain the presidency and retake control of the House and Senate. These three tactics, he maintains, threaten the very democracy that we all hold so dear. In Part 2, Sexual Harassment, Trump versus Cuomo, Waldron takes a look at differences between our two political parties in dealing with big shots who get themselves in hot water for one form of sexual misconduct or another. For a party that pretends to be God-fearing and all of that, Republicans simply turn a blind eye when their fearful leader brags about his sexual escapades, while Democrats face the facts and don't cut and run when asked about what should happen to Cuomo. So take a listen, first to Gerrymandering, Voter Suppression, and the Big Lie, and then Sexual Harassment, Trump versus Cuomo, from NotFakeNews.biz. Whenever there's an election, there is the inevitable post-mortem, when the losing side dusts off its bruises and tries to figure out what went wrong. Often, there's a change in leadership at the party level and a change in strategy to appeal to a wider range of voters. Like so many things, the events that followed the 2020 elections defy this long-held practice. Instead, Republicans are launching on a path of redistricting to their advantage, limiting voter participation, and promoting the big lie of a stolen election. Any one of these could have the effect of changing the electoral map and alter the balance of power in the 2022 midterm elections, which is why the results of the 2020 elections were so crucial. Despite winning the White House and majority control of the Senate, Democrats are in the minority in most state houses. It is here that Republicans hope to tip the balance of power by using various means to skew voting in their favor. First, let's talk about gerrymandering. That's the process by which congressional districts are drawn in favor of the political party in power. This has resulted in some very wide-ranging and often contorted district lines being created. With Republicans in control, their aim is to draw district lines that are to their advantage, leading to more representatives in Congress and ultimately more control of the governmental process. This could stymie President Biden's agenda, similar to the way they fought President Obama's legislative agenda. Representation, at least in the House of Representatives, is based upon population, which is why the 2020 census was vital to determining the number of members of Congress in each state. The greater the population, the more representatives in Congress. So with a larger population and greater representation, it would make sense that the Trump administration would want an accurate census count, except they didn't. Instead, his administration attempted to alter the results of the census by excluding unauthorized immigrants in the count. The result would be lower representation, but Trump reasoned that these immigrants, despite not having voting rights, could vote Democratic, thereby costing him the election. Next, voter suppression. The coronavirus pandemic caused many states to change the way people voted. Many states expanded absentee voting by easing the reasons people could use to claim the right to vote by mail. Some states sent absentee ballots only to those who requested them, while others mailed ballots to every registered voter in their state. This led to widespread allegations of voter fraud and rigged election. This despite the fact that Republicans won a majority of statewide races while losing the White House and the Senate. The resulting backlash was a series of laws being proposed by several states aimed at limiting voter participation in future elections. 43 states have proposed 253 bills aimed at suppressing the vote. This in the country that calls itself the greatest democracy in the world. Now, these bills are meant to limit absentee balloting, shorten early voting times, require multiple voter IDs, and eliminate Sunday voting. Each of these measures is aimed at limiting voter participation from primarily minority populations, which have historically elected Democratic lawmakers. To counter Republican efforts to suppress the votes, Democrats in Congress have passed H.R. 1, or the For the People Act of 2021. This bill, which will have a very difficult time getting passed in the Senate, where a supermajority, 60 votes, is required for passage, unless there is an agreement to end the filibuster. That's a move opposed by President Biden and West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat. The Senate is evenly divided 50-50, but Vice President Kamala Harris holds the deciding vote, which is why Democrats have control. After President Biden's COVID relief plan, H.R. 1 is Democrats' top legislative priority. If passed, it would end gerrymandering, automatically register voters, permit same-day voter registration, enhance ballot accuracy, and even have contingency plans for natural disasters in our current pandemic, as well as other provisions to end voter suppression. The very nature of H.R. 1 is in direct opposition to the voter suppression efforts of the states. This inevitably will set up a confrontation in the courts as the never-ending battle between federal intervention and states' rights again takes center stage. This is indeed ironic, since Republicans sought to interfere with the voting rights of other states as they asked the Supreme Court to overturn the mail-in ballots of states where Trump lost. Now they will claim that H.R. 1 goes too far in forcing the states to adhere to federal standards for voting. All right, let's take a look at the big lie. Of course, none of this would be such a major issue if not for the big lie. Donald Trump's false claim that the results of the 2020 presidential election were somehow stolen. Cries of "Stop the Steal" and a rigged election were directly responsible for the January 6th insurrection. While gerrymandering would certainly have taken place regardless of who won the election, it's being done in the shadow of an election loss, where the incumbent tried to alter the results in favor of his party. Efforts to suppress the vote are a direct result of Trump's election loss. And while Trump supporters bristle at the comparisons to Nazi Germany, the term "the big lie" is directly associated with Hitler's minister of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. Like Goebbels, Trump has convinced his followers that his election loss never happened. Indeed, there are still members of Congress, including Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, and Senator Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri, who openly support the big lie, even as they carry out their duties. All of these, gerrymandering, voter suppression, and the big lie, are eating away at the fabric of democracy. The refusal to commit to a peaceful transition of power for the first time in our history will forever be a stain on our history, and it's uncertain what the future will hold. Will we move on and return to normal, or has the American dream vanished forever. Now we're going to take a quick break here, but I'll be right back after this message with sexual harassment, Trump versus Cuomo. So don't go away. When it comes to sexual harassment, Republicans and Democrats hold their representatives to very different standards. One side takes the issue seriously and demands accountability, while the other sticks with the boys will be boys standard that has been used to excuse such behavior in the past. It continues to be used to defend inappropriate behavior while holding the opposition party to a much higher set of rules. The current situation involving New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is a case in point. Sexual harassment is a serious issue and one that has been ignored for a long time. For centuries, women have had to endure unsolicited comments on their appearance, catcalls from leering males, and victim shaming as unscrupulous lawyers sought to use what a woman was wearing or her sexual history as a means of defending their guilty clients. Then came the Me Too movement. Women who have been largely ignored when making accusations of sexual harassment were suddenly demanding to be heard. While this isn't the first time women made inroads into calling out those who verbally abuse them, it is one that is currently demanding the people take notice, and those who use their positions of power to gain sexual favors held accountable. Except there is a definite double standard when it comes to holding members of a political party to the same set of norms. For Democrats, there is a demand that the accused harasser be held accountable, as in the case with Cuomo, with removal from office all but certain, even before he is faced with legal consequences. Members of the Republican Party are measured differently. The accusations are largely ignored as fellow members excuse, confuse, and obfuscate to blur the alleged harassment and cast the accuser in a harsh light. This is being played out in real time as both Donald Trump and Cuomo are accused by multiple women of some degree of sexual impropriety. The number of Cuomo accusers grows by the day, while at least 26 women have accused Trump of various degrees of sexual misconduct. And while there is a growing call for Cuomo to resign, Trump is viewed as the Republican frontrunner in a 2024 bid to retake the White House. Both political parties have a history of sexual harassment accusations. Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, both Republican nominees, were accused of various improper actions during their confirmation hearings. Former President Bill Clinton was accused of improprieties by 4 different women, while Minnesota Senator Al Franken was accused by 8 different women. Thomas and Kavanaugh went on to be confirmed to their lifetime posts as Supreme Court justices. Clinton overcame the allegations to win election, but Franken was forced to resign after his party abandoned him following the accusations. Yet it is the current situation that is drawing so much attention. Trump's re-election hopes were as much an effort to remain in power as they were a ploy to avoid legal consequences, as he hoped to outlast the statute of limitations on the sexual abuse allegations. Despite a judge's ruling, Trump is yet to be deposed on any of these accusations, citing protections afforded to a sitting president, even though Bill Clinton sat for a deposition while he was president in answer to one of his accusers. In defending his own actions, Cuomo is taking a page or two out of the Republican playbook. Despite multiple calls for his resignation, Cuomo is making claims similar to those Republicans made in defending their vote not to convict following Trump's first impeachment trial. He is asserting that only the voters can remove him from office. He is also claiming the calls for his resignation are the result of cancel culture, which also has been a recent refrain of Republicans trying to distract from any other issue. Trump, on the other hand, has openly admitted to sexual abuse in the infamous Access Hollywood tape. He was also accused of raping his first wife, Ivana, and a talk show host. Trump also had a questionable friendship with the late convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, although they had a falling out when Epstein was banned from Trump's Mar-a-Lago golf club after hitting on the teenage daughter of another member. Alleged payoffs to porn actress Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal lend further credence to the sexual harassment charges Trump is facing. In the past, Trump has paid off his accusers and forced them to sign non-disclosure agreements to gain their silence. Currently, there are legal challenges to the enforceability of these NDAs, which could free many to testify against him. Trump's current financial woes will probably prevent him from trying this in the future, should other accusers come forth. Sexual harassment is a serious issue that has been ignored for far too long. Men in power have been allowed to get away with it by virtue of holding all the cards. Recent efforts to hold these powerful males accountable have been decidedly one-sided when it comes to political parties. For Democrats, it's holding them accountable, while Republicans still practice a system of denial and victim blaming. There needs to be an equal system of accountability if these serial abusers are ever to be stopped. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. It'd be great if you'd follow NFN Radio News so you don't miss an episode. And check out notfakenews.biz too. There's new material just about every day, and we have some really good writers with perspectives on a whole range of topics. You can sign up as a member at notfakenews.biz. And of course, it's all free. Also, let your friends know about this podcast and about notfakenews.biz. Our goal is to be informative and entertaining as we comment on the latest developments in the news with just a little lean to the left. Plus, check out our companion podcast, Tempo in the Times, created with my old buddy Scott Ramager to explore the intersection of music, art, and popular culture with news and politics. We launched Friday, February 19 with an introductory episode that explains what you can expect from Tempo in the Times, which will include some cool and interesting guests and streams every Friday. Our first guest was Susan Anders, a talented Nashville musician who shared info about her musical adventures, including her new album, 13 Women. The album looks to the past with original songs about 13 women, some well-known, some not, who have made extraordinary contributions to history and our modern world. March is Women's History Month, so this is a perfect way to recognize that and to kick off our new show. So take a listen to our first episode of Tempo in the Times. You can find that show on just about any podcast streaming service, including Spreaker, or by visiting tempointhetimes.com. Meanwhile, thanks for listening. This is Bob Gaddy signing off for NFN Radio News and NotFakeNews.biz.